What is going on, YouTube? Happy Sunday. We've got 12 games to talk about. Should be a good day. I'm seeing a money-making day today. I'm feeling pretty damn good. So we'll see how it goes. College football yesterday was interesting. We'll recap all that. But a couple things here. This is going to be probably a longer video, guys. Use the timelines down below if you want to skip around a little bit. That way you can go to where you want to go. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're pushing 600 subs. Appreciate all the support. Same thing as yesterday. You guys want some parlays? Let's do, we'll say a light goal of 10. We hit 10, I'll drop some parlays, and that's going to be pinned in the comments below. And I'll have those up by, let's say noon. We got a 1 o'clock game. We're going to skip the 9 a.m. In terms of parlays. So by noon, I'll have parlays posted if we can get 10 likes. Recap yesterday, we went 4-3 in the NBA. We went 4-3 in college. So 8-6 overall. I gave you guys 4 parlays. 3 of those parlays smacked. So good day yesterday. But we got a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. First game on the card in Germany. Giants and the Panthers. We've got the worst defense going up against the worst offense. What a game. What a game. Carolina defense, dead last in the league in terms of rushing yards allowed, 159.3 yards, 25th in passing yards allowed, dead last in rushing attempts allowed, 35 rushing attempts a game, dead last in rushing touchdowns allowed, bottom in basically everything. I mean, this is a terrible, terrible Carolina defense, but the Giants offense is just pretty damn bad. So there's that. Defensive-wise, Giants are pretty good at stopping the pass. They're 9th in the league, 191.6 yards a game. So doesn't fare well for Bryce Young. Passing attempts, they're 3rd. Passing touchdowns, they're 10th. Now where they are vulnerable is in the rush. 142.6 yards a game. Could be a spot for a Chuba Hubbard play. I mean, he did just sign this nice little contract extension. Not a huge Hubbard fan. And I hate this game. I don't love it. Not good. But we'll go over my score predictions and who I think will win at the end of each game. So if I go through this and you want me to stop, it's okay. It's all going to be posted at the end. I got this 21-14. Giants minus 6.5. Couple of props that I like in this game. I like Malik Neighbors over 6.5 receptions, and I like Tyrone Tracy, running back for the Giants, over 16.5 rushing attempts. All right, next game. Niners and the Bucs, the return of the man, Christian McCaffrey, coming back today. I think we're going to see definitely a decreased volume. So one of my favorite plays today is Christian McCaffrey under 14.5 rushing attempts. I think there is great value there. I think most people, this line's minus 6.5. I think that's a pretty damn good line. I've got this 28-20 49ers. Still just not where I can trust the Bucs yet, but we'll see. I mean, their defense is definitely, Tampa is very susceptible to the pass. 256 yards a game, that's 30th in the league. Rushing yards, they're 19th in the league. I mean, not a great defense. This is one where they kind of have to outscore everybody. Rushing yards per attempt, they're high at 4.9. It's just not great. San Francisco's D, pretty good. I mean, overall, they're definitely better than average. Rushing yards allowed, they do a pretty good job, usually because they're ahead. But passing yards allowed, they're only 14th. Passing attempts, they're 19th. Rushing attempts, they're 9th in the league. You know, everything's pretty solid from the defensive standpoint. They could use some more sacks. They're kind of middle of the road in terms of QB hits and sacks. And their interception rate is pretty good, 3.8%. That's second best. So I think we should see Niners win this game. I like the minus 6.5. I'm perfectly cool taking that today. I also like Bucky Irving over 15.5 receiving yards, and I like Jake Moody over 1.5 field goals. So that's my play in that one. Moving on, Vikings are -7 versus the Jags. Mac Jones is likely going to be the starting QB for Jacksonville. It sounds like Trevor Lawrence is going to be out. Not a lot I love in this game. I mean, I've got this a pretty high-scoring game. I've got this 31-23 Vikes. So It's pretty appropriately placed with that -7, but I do like Vikings -7. I think Mac should have a little bit of success. I mean, if we look at it, the Minnesota defense is very, very vulnerable to the pass. They're giving up 250 yards a game through the air, 28th in the league, giving up a lot of passing attempts. Teams are throwing almost 40 times a game against them, so that is actually dead last in the league. Which isn't necessarily bad. That just means they have the lead a lot. Conversely, it kind of flight of the arrows, right? Passing's high, rushing's low. So they're still second in the league in rushing, 81.9 yards a game. So I wouldn't touch a Travis Etienne prop. Probably not even a Tank Bigsby prop today. Only 21 average attempts a game against this Minnesota defense in terms of the rush. Rushing yards allowed pretty good at 3.8. They're doing a fantastic job of getting to the QB. They are number one, 8 quarterback hits a game, and they're top 10 in sack percentage, and they do a great job of picking QBs off. 4.1% interception rate, so 4.1% of passing plays result in a pick, so pretty damn good. I wouldn't be opposed to looking at maybe a Mac Jones interception, something like that. Play I love in this game, though, is TJ Hawkinson over 34.5 receiving yards. He played a lot more than I thought he would last week, so we should see that increase this week. This line... Last year, this line would have been an absolute joke. I mean, his line was in the 50s, 60s, so we're getting 34.5. I like that line. So for me, it's Vikings -7. Like I said, 31-23 would be my score prediction in this game. Next game, Steelers and the Commanders. I think this is going to be a pretty good game. I'm actually very much looking forward to this game. I think it should be quite a solid game. We look at Washington's defense. They're doing a really good job on the pass. They're only allowing 183.3 yards, which is 5th best in the league. Where they've been vulnerable is in the rush. They are 29th in the league, giving up 143 yards a game. Rushing yards per attempt, very high, 5.1. That is 30th in the league. They've got to get to the QB more. That's killing them. Only 5.44 QB hits per game average. That is 19th in the league. They are getting sacks, though. They're 6th best in the league in terms of their sack percentage, but they're not getting a lot of picks. That is also another problem. They are 27th in the league. Now, we look at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's all about the defense. It's been their hallmark for a long, long time, but they've been a little more susceptible to the pass this year for sure. They're giving up 220 yards a game, 21st in the league, but rush defense is absolutely solid. 4th best in the league, giving up a little under 91 yards a game. Rushing yards per attempt, doing pretty good. It's 4.0. That's 5th best in the league. They're doing a good job of getting to the QB. Obviously, you got Watt in there. You're going to do a pretty good job of crushing the QB. So pretty good on the defensive front. That said, Commanders have been rolling. They're at home. I got this 17-23 Commander, so I love this -2.5. It's actually one of my favorite plays today. I like Jaden Daniels to go over 224.5 passing yards. So that's my take on that game. Let's see, Falcons and the Saints. Definitely one of my favorite plays today. A lot of shit going on with the Saints, man. You had Dennis Allen get fired. You got drama with Derek Carr and Michael Thomas on X or Twitter. You had Marshawn Lattimore get traded. I mean, this team is just an absolute dumpster fire. So to me, Falcons -3.5 is an absolute steal. I've got this 30-17 Falcons. I don't have a lot in terms of props. This is more, I'm just going to hammer the Falcons -3.5. That's my play on this one. So we'll move on. Patriots and the Bears. Bears are 6-point favorites at home. Should be an interesting game. I don't love it, if I'm being honest, but at the same time, I do think it's a really good spot for the Bears. I think they should win with, I wouldn't say relative ease, but I've got this 16-27 Bears. So I like them in the spot. A couple of leans will be Drake May over 29.5. I mean, that's a very, very soft lean. There's something weird about that line. He's been crushing this line, and we're not seeing massive movement here. And obviously, Bears have a great defense. They're keen to what Drake May does, so it's a very light lean towards that over. I do like Rome Odunze over his receiving yards. That'll be something that does make the card. Caleb Williams, 2+ passing touchdowns. You can get that for +175 on FanDuel. I don't know if it'll make my card, but I thought it was a a high value play there going up against this Patriots defense. So I do like that. All right, next game, Bills and the Colts. Another one where this line doesn't make sense to me. Bills minus 3.5. I've got this 30-17 Bills. So you can get Allen 2+ passing touchdowns, which he's gone over in the last 3 or 4 weeks. You can get that for minus 115 on DK. I do like the Jonathan Taylor over 78.5 rushing yards at minus 120 on DK. I mean, I do think there's some offense. This Bills defense isn't super stout. They're okay, right? They're very middle of the road in passing yards, 210 yards a game. They're very middle of the road in rushing yards allowed, 123. Just everything's kind of middle of the road. Their rushing yards allowed, though, is pretty high at 4.8. So that's 25th worst in the league. There's just nothing necessarily that they do fantastic. They do limit the yards per completion at 9.7, but everything else, the completion percentage really high, 68.2%. That is 25th worst in the league. Now we go to Indy, and they don't do anything really super well on defense. Their passing yards allowed pretty high. It's 234 yards a game, allowing 150 rushing yards a game, 1.5 passing touchdowns a game. I mean, you name it. Completion percentage, one of the worst in the league, allowing a 70% completion percentage QBs. Yards per completion, 11.1. Rushing yards allowed, 4.4. They're not doing a good job of getting to the QB. Sack rate is very low. Pick rate is middle of the road. So it's hard for me to back an Indy defense that just hasn't proven anything, and it's not like they're stout at home. We've seen the Bills go on the road and play fantastic. So beautiful spot to take the Bills at minus 3.5. I can definitely see this being, like I said, I got it 30-17. So love the spot here. All right, next game, Broncos and the Chiefs. This one should be interesting. I mean, Chiefs have popped off. DeAndre Hopkins looked fantastic last week. He had 8 receptions, but he was overshadowed by Travis Kelce, who had 14. And then the previous week, Travis had 10. Everybody was on Kelce about lack of production earlier in the year. I mean, the semi is just getting warmed up. So adding Hopkins to this mix is almost like a cheat code. It is ridiculous. Kareem Hunt's been fantastic. Hell of a resurgence from him. I just don't see the Broncos standing any chance in this game. I've got this 17-29 Kansas City. So Kansas City minus 7.5. I'm on board. I do like the Javonte Williams over rushing yards. I think that line's a little low. That said, Kansas City does a fantastic job of limiting the run. They're third best in the league, 84 yards a game, but it makes sense. They have a very potent offense. Teams have to try to score points. You know, if you're going to beat them, you got to score a lot of points. So that said, Kansas City's done a good job of limiting passing yards too, only averaging 210 a game, 15th best in the league. We talked about their rushing, very good there. Rushing per attempt is at 3.7. That's second best in the league. So it's a little tricky on the Javonte Williams prop, but I do like it. It's only in the 30s, man. Like, I'm hoping he can go over that. Denver defense is super stout. I mean, arguably make a case for best defense in the league. Passing yards a game, 187. That's sixth best in the league. Rushing yards allowed, they're top 10. Yards per completion, 9.7. That's third best in the league. Rushing yards per attempt, 4.0. That's fourth best in the league. They're getting to the quarterback, they're getting sacks, and they're getting picks. Like, it's a damn good defense. Going up against another good defense. That said, I still think there's points in this game. So I think Patrick Mahomes is just kind of a different dude. So I think he'll be able to carve this defense up a little bit. They're going to be little short passes. I do like Travis Kelce over 5.5 receptions. I like the Javonte Williams over, which we talked about. And I like Kareem Hunt over 18.5 rushing attempts. This line's a little low. He's been in the 20s for the past 3 weeks. So I think we're getting value here. Yeah, Chiefs, hard to not take the Chiefs at home. Just gotta go with that. Okay, moving on. We've got, we got 4 games left. Titans and the Chargers. Will Levis is starting at QB. Strap in. It's going to be a fun little ride there. So I've got this 17-21 Chargers. So I would actually take the Titans plus 7.5 in this spot. Titans D is just really good. Number 1 in passing yards allowed at 155.8. Rushing, they're giving up 113th. That's just outside the top 10. Rushing yards per attempt, they're top 10. Yards per completion on the passing side, they're second in the league. Completion percentage, they're top 10. They're doing a very good job. The only thing they need to do more of is picks. They are 26th in the league when it comes to picks. So would have to see that pick up a little bit. Chargers side of the ball, pretty decent on the defensive side. 8th best in rushing yards allowed, 11th in passing yards. Rushing yards per attempt, a little weak at 4.6. That would put them 20th. Not getting to the quarterback a ton, 24th in the league at 5.0 hits. But that said, when they do get to the quarterback, very effective. Top 10 in sack percentage, top 10 in pick percentage. So Will Levis, I don't trust the guy necessarily, but I do trust that the Titans defense will keep this as a close game. The only lean I have from a props perspective in this game would be Josh Palmer over 27.5 receiving yards. It's kind of a light line, but he is over that in 5 straight games. So other than that, I would say it's got to be Titans plus the 7.5 or fade. Most likely, this is a bit of a fade game, in my opinion. All right, next game, Jets. Minus 1.5 to the Cardinals at home. It's an interesting spot for sure. Arizona, not fantastic in terms of anything on defense. I mean, this defense is lacking in every aspect. They are 24th in passing yards allowed, 22nd in rushing yards allowed, 25th in getting hits on the QB, 27th in completion percentage, allowing almost a 70% completion percentage. Let's see, 9th worst in the league in terms of interception percentage. I mean, just a very middle of the road defense. Now, on the Jet side of the ball, still a good D. They've been a lot more vulnerable to the rush lately, though. They're 21st in the league in rushing yards allowed, but they are second in passing yards allowed at 158 passing yards per game. That said, we know that Kyler Murray doesn't necessarily have to pass the ball. This guy is a magician. He will get out of all kinds of potential sacks and turn them into big plays. And he's got the weapons to do it on the offensive side of the ball. I think it should be a somewhat close game, but I've got this 24-21 Jets beating the Cardinals. So a couple of props I liked. The Arizona kicker, Ryland, I like his over 1.5 field goals at minus 105. And I like Garrett Wilson over 70.5 receiving yards. I mean, his reception line is at 5.5, and he's ridiculously favored to go over that. Could definitely see him making a big play today. I think Devontae Adams just really opens up the door for him to have some bigger plays. So give me the Jets at minus 1.5 in this spot. Not one of my favorite plays in terms of money line plays, though. All right, Eagles and the Cowboys. Old Dak Prescott, his hamstring injury is so severe that he's going to need surgery. So it sounds like his season is going to be over. Cooper Rush steps in. I don't love Cooper Rush. Not a huge Cooper Rush fan. That said, this line's 7.5. I would venture. This is probably going to be one of the most favorited plays today. Like a ton of people are going to be on the Eagles minus 7.5. I'm actually more towards the Cowboys here. I've got this 24-21 Eagles. I do think they win. I just don't think it's by more than 7.5. That said, could be completely wrong, but that's kind of where I see this game. A couple of props I like would be Cooper Rush under 210.5 passing yards, just a little too high in my opinion. This Philly defense is doing a good job of stopping the pass. That is one thing they're doing. They're 7th best in the league at 189 yards. Just really all told, the defense is pretty damn solid, but allowing fifth best in the league in rushing yards allowed at 101.1. I mean, if you want to look at a Rico Dowdle rushing yards, it's still in the 40s. So potentially take that, but yeah, it kind of a blah game. Whereas we look at the Dallas defense, man, they're getting torched on the ground. 148 yards a game. That's 30th in the league. Completion percentage, giving up a 67% completion percentage, 22nd in the league. Yards per completion, 30th at 12.4. So you could look at A.J. Brown, someone like that. Could definitely see at some point in this game, A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith catching a nice little deep ball. So you could look at Jalen Hurts, longest receiving yards, longest there. I want to say it's 30. It was a little high. I looked at it. It's like 35.5, 36.5. So I didn't want to necessarily take that. CD Lamb over 5.5 receptions is a possibility. I know it doesn't necessarily correlate to the Cooper Rush under, but I definitely see him dumping down some balls to CD Lamb. So I do think both can hit. This line for CD is usually at like 7.5. So we are getting some value there, but I don't love Cooper Rush. That said, there is some familiarity there with CD Lamb. All right, let's talk about the last game on the card. Lions minus 3.5 going up against the Texans. Nico Collins was activated. Doesn't necessarily mean he will play today, but he was activated off of the IR. So we'll have to see if he does play. Now, this is highly contingent on him playing. I like the Texans to win this game. I think 27-28 Texans is my pick. Now, if Collins doesn't play, I like the Lions to win this game, but I do think this minus 3.5 is a very well-placed line. It just kind of has upset potential. Lions traveling to play the Texans at home in prime time. Should be an interesting game. Joe Mixon over 16.5 rush attempts at minus 120. I'm okay with that. Stroud over 12.5 rushing yards. I like that. He had 59 yards last game. I think this Lions D will flush him out of the pocket, but he's been pretty good outside of the pocket. Honestly, this Houston defense is playing some pretty good football, but you're going up against a very potent Lions offense. Let's be real. But in terms of passing yards allowed, Houston D is third best at 167 yards through the air. Rushing yards, they're 12th at 114th. Rushing yards per attempt, though, they're 24th at 4.7 yards per attempt. So definitely could see, Jamar Gibbs or David Montgomery breaking off a pretty nice chunks of run there. But they're doing a great job of getting to the QB. 6.44 QB hits. Jared Goff is not the most mobile dude. So if they are able to break through the line, that's going to be a sack, which the Houston defense is fourth best in terms of sacks, and they're top 10 in picks. So this I just feels like a good little upset spot in my opinion. So let's talk about the best bets because we've got a lot of them and this video is getting a little long. So best bets today. Malik Neighbors over 6.5 receptions. So if you want to get that in, you don't have a ton of time, but he's over in 5 of 7. Carolina 25th in passing yards allowed. I mean, his defense is absolute dog shit. So over 6.5 feels like a bit of a steal. Christian McCaffrey under 14.5 rush attempts. Like I said, first game back should be under some type of snap count. So going up against the Bucs, I don't necessarily think they need him at full strength. TJ Hawkinson over 34.5 receiving yards. I think his snap count goes up, and we should see a decent amount of targets to him. Tyrone Tracy over 16.5 rush attempts. We already talked about it. Carolina, terrible. I could see the Giants getting up and just hammering the run here. Rome Odunze over 39.5 receiving yards. He had 6 targets 2 weeks ago, 7 targets last week, and he had 3 and 6 receptions. So there is a huge expectation that he's going to have at least 3 receptions. You can go minus 2.5 receptions on DK. It's like minus 185, and it's minus 200 plus on most books. So pretty good chance that they think he's going to get at least 3, probably 4. We just need him to catch something halfway decent here. So I like him to go over that. James Cook over 14.5 receiving yards. He's been crushing this line the last 2 weeks. He had 22 2 weeks ago. He had 25 last week. So I can definitely see Josh Allen dumping some balls down to him and going over this line. Javonte Williams over 33.5 or 35.5 rushing yards. A little scary because KC is, third best in the league, only allowing about 84 yards per game. That said, though, Javante's over in 5 of his last 6 games against some pretty good run D. So I like him to go over this line. He's definitely been the number 1 back. He's a big dude, so he's definitely capable of breaking through and snapping off maybe 1 or 2 long runs for us here. That said, I think he has to do it on 10 carries. So we need him to average about 3.6 yards a carry. So if you want to fade this one, I get it, but I think there's value there. Kareem Hunt over 18.5 rush attempts. He's over this in 4 straight games. I just don't think you can stop this Kansas City's offense. They have too many weapons, and they're still going to utilize Kareem Hunt. So I could see him getting a lead and really running hard in the second half. Samaje Perine over 7.5 receiving yards. We were on this play last KC game. He has just been blistering this line. In his last 4 games, he's had 24, 22, 30, 25 receiving yards. I mean, this dude, he's just the third down back that catches balls. So over 7.5, good value there. Honestly, I'll keep playing this every week if it's at 7.5. Garrett Wilson over 70.5 receiving yards. Like I said, he's minus 150 to get 6 receptions right now. So just good value there. Cooper Rush under 210 passing yards. I already talked about it. Eagles 7th best in the league, only allowing 189 passing yards a game. And then Saquon Barkley under 2.5 receptions. He was over this in the last game, but he's missed in the previous 4 games. So I like him to go under at minus 130. Just good value here. This is minus 160, minus 170 or more on some books. So those are my 12 favorite best bets. And then we already talked about the score predictions and who I think wins, but I wanted to post it on the screen for you guys. And like I said, if you want some parlays, let's get 10 likes on this video and I will drop some parlays. Appreciate the hell out of you guys. Good luck today. And I will catch you in the next video.